Okay, I promise only one more video on the 80mm macro since I've made a few already. By the way, there are a couple links below, and I'll actually take you to this image and another, and these were done handheld, and this was using the 1.4 teleconverter since it shows up as 112 millimeters, shot at f16, like I said handheld. Now, I posted an image last week. I got a lot of neat macro stuff and a lot of great testing tools. And I took a shot of this particular silicon wafer platter. The micro resistors on this are really tiny, and they're scattered amongst 5 different arrays right here. And they're actually countable and extremely high clarity on the 80mm macro 2.8 here. Now, it is the case, and I've harped on endlessly about sharpness not being everything, and that is the case specifically for portraiture. Like, you need to do black and white photography, micro contrast is way more important than resolution. For macro photography, resolution is insanely important, and if you don't know the reason why, maybe you could look it up. Let me tell you something, and I take this sort of review really seriously. Actually, I take any gear reviews really seriously. I might goof around and say crazy stuff like, awesome as woodpecker lips and, stuff like that makes people laugh, but I can't get a review like this wrong because people would crucify me for it, and I've done a lot of shooting with this lens. I actually posted up a Flickr group with the 80mm macro. Let me tell you something about the 80mm macro now that I've done an enormous amount of testing, and this lens has to go back tomorrow since it's a rental. Mine's coming later this week. I've been saying now for quite a long time, and I own every Fujifilm X-Series lens and GF X-Series lens, that, I even put on my Fujifilm shirt that I got because I'm so proud of this lens. Said that the 16mm is Fujifilm's absolute best lens. Now, it may not be a focal length that you like, but I said flat out, period, the 16 is their best lens, and it still is. So let's just say a cohabitator now of that. People say, what is Fujifilm's, regardless of focal, what's their best lens? It's their 16 and their 80mm macro. Unquestionably so. I don't know if it's the actual ceramic rollerball mech in combination with the linear motors, but the resolution, let me tell you something. And it is important because anybody can make a statement, oh my god, this macro lens is incredible. Well, what the hell do you know? How many macro lenses have you used or tried? Well, not many. Well, okay, that's wonderful. You like it. I currently own well over 15 macro lenses. I have the best and most expensive macro lenses money can buy. I have the Zeiss 100mm macro. I have the Nikkor 200mm f4. I have the Nikkor 105mm 2.8 with VR, the older 105mm, the 55mm AIS Nikkor. 4 or 5 copies of the 60mm 2.8, the Takina 100mm 2.8 macro lens, the Sigma, I own one Sigma lens, the 150mm Sigma macro lens. I can respectfully call myself a bit of a macro god. Let me tell you some really important stuff that I kind of didn't cover on this lens before, and I want to finalize it here. And by the way, please check these images below. They are from, by the way, well, the disc is much bigger, the silicon wafer is much bigger, the actual lithography on it is a good bit smaller than this one. Smaller disc, but bigger lithography. This is a really old lithography silicon wafer. This is much, much newer, and the micro resistors on it are countable, and very easily so. Very easily so. Holy bat crap. Holy bat crap. This was done handheld. I mean, usually macro photography like this, you don't do it handheld, but I just wanted to do it for, it's like I knew I could nail it. I got really good hand-holding techniques. This shot at 1/250th of a second. I shoot all flash speedlight photography generally in a TTL with a flash comp, and I shoot everything manual. Shot 1/250th at f16. Yeah, and this is with the 1.4 teleconverter. Making it 112mm effective. This is absolutely the best macro lens in existence. I'm staking everything, any credibility you think I may or may not have on that statement. The best macro lens that exists currently from anybody. And I got a crap load of macro lenses. The best that money can buy. And God, some of them are really, really expensive. Really expensive. Not only that, the best autofocus macro lens that exists currently. One really important thing, like if you're going to go out and shoot butterflies or insects crawling on, a rose petal, or shoot some flowers. One serious issue, and every macro photographer, somebody who has skills in macro photography, knows. Well, you do manual focus override. You got to manually focus it because autofocus, even on the best macro lens, it's difficult. It's kind of half and half. I have purposely tried to see how good the autofocus on this lens is, and we actually have 3 selections between extremely close, 5 meters to infinity, and absolute full autofocus. I've not had any issue, even at the unless it was really low contrast. There's no lighting at all for anything for the lens to grab onto on the either phase detect or contrast detect to feed the camera to tell the lens where to autofocus. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely stunning. I've not had to do manual focus override and use focus peaking, which in the Fujifilm X-T2 is AF plus MF setting, where you actually override the autofocus. Since this is focused by wire, there's no linkage in these particular lenses. And that is absolutely frigging unheard of. When you have actually a lighting system to light a bug or a flower and you're stooping over it, breaking your back, you just don't have a third hand to sit there and manually focus the lens as you're holding the lighting. Even if you've got a nice kit that's all together, like lighting bracket, it still requires 2 hands. You don't have a third hand to manually focus. This lens, you don't have to do that. Even in really bad macro lighting conditions, indoors here where these lights weren't pointing down, really crummy, really amazing autofocus. And for macro, that's incredible. Now, it's not important here where you have it on tripod and you're doing product shots of like a ring or some jewelry. I mean, you take your time, you do it right. But I mean, not an issue. You don't even have to think about using this lens in manual focus. This, by the way, is this silicone wafer. Please click on these 2 images below. Absolutely stunning. Just grab your pink frilly panties really tight and buy this lens. I'm absolutely saying that this may not be the focal you want. I have the 90 also. It's like, well, I've already got a 90. I know that. And I never tell anybody to sell anything. I'm not saying sell the 90 either. I did tell you, too, priorly, this is also, too, Fujifilm's fastest autofocus lens, bar none. I did the same test over and over again, over 30 times, literally, no exaggeration. Near focus, far focus. Near to far, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. On 2 different cameras between the 90 and the 80. The 80 is absolutely Fujifilm's fastest lens, period, bar none, for continuous autofocus. Period. Absolutely, undeniably so. The lens is $1,200 and is worth absolutely every penny of it. I can't wait for mine to come in. I got to send this back since this is off the lease program because the place I was getting this lens from just ran short and they didn't get all the numbers in that they had ordered, so no big deal. I'm glad to have leased this, and mine will be in later this week. Absolutely phenomenal. So this is Fujifilm's, let me reiterate the really important thing. This is Fujifilm's fastest autofocus lens, bar none, easily, hands down. I rate this now as Fujifilm's best lens right alongside their 16mm, and people will crucify me if I get that wrong, so I stand by that. I've taken a lot of shots with this lens, a lot of shots with this lens. So it's the best, it's the fastest autofocus. Resolution is absolutely incredible. And I can also say that this is better than any other. I said I've got Zeiss macro lenses, the very best, most expensive. Nikon has nothing close to this. I know the 200mm f4 is a dated lens, but it's rather incredible. And of course, 200mm too. The 105 f2.8 VR, nothing comes close to this lens by anybody. Not the Sigma, not the Nikon, not the Zeiss, nothing. I have all of those lenses. I have all of them. This is the best macro lens out there by anybody. It's like, well, what about Fuji? No, just the best, period. And that's, you may not be interested in macro photography, and this may not be the focal length for you. But I stand by this statement like the Rock of Gibraltar because I take statements, really bold statements, because if I get a bold statement wrong, someone's going to crucify me. Well, you said back then. No, there's nothing that's going to change about this statement on the 90mm, excuse me, the 80mm 2.8 macro. The fastest macro, the best macro, Definitely the sharpest. This is way sharper than my Zeiss 100mm macro. I made several videos on that lens. It's sitting there in my back room along with 15 other Zeiss lenses. Sharper than any Nikkor macro. Resolution is incredibly important in macro photography. Product photographers, people that are this is where a lot of the money is, and none of these YouTube channels talk about it. Money is in corporate, product, and commercial and event photography. That's where the money is. And weddings, however, I hate weddings. So, it's a really important statement to make about the 80mm 2.8 macro. And I stand by that resolutely and unswervingly. All of these micro resistors are, you can't even, with my magnifying glass over here, let me point out something. I can make out all of these. I can even make out the substructure on the lithography between the micro resistors. Even with a loop, a standard magnifying loop, you can't even, there's no way in hell you can see the micro resistors on this silicon wafer lithography. This is a much newer wafer. I don't know how old it is. It's at least within the past 10 years. Incredible. And that's fantastic. The Fuji 80mm is absolutely off the bloody hook. And I wasn't expecting that from this. Like, okay, Fujifilm's coming out with a long macro. It's good. You know, that's great. Okay, it'll be good. You know, I'll probably like it. No. No, 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 no. No. Really, really, really off the hook, damn good. And no, it's not damn good. I mean, that's just an understatement. It's absolutely epic. Just absolutely bleeping epic. I don't make that statement lightly. And I hope you like this video review. Want to be helpful? And I did a lot of photography with this lens. A lot. I mean, I created a Flickr group for this lens. And other people have posted their images from it. Now we got 46 members. People posted some interesting stuff. I posted a lot of neat stuff. I don't know about neat. You may not think it's neat, whatever the case may be. But, wow, this lens is amazing. It really is. Whether you like me or don't, I stand by this review, and I can guarantee you I own more macro lenses than anybody you'll ever meet, and that's not bragging. That's just saying that, you know, one guy once told me, and I said something about a lens, and this was in a camera store. I was like, you know, that's the best so-and-so. He said, well, that's just your opinion. I said, you know, you're right, but some opinions are worth a lot more than others are. He said, yeah, you're kind of right. I'm actually kind of stunned. No, I'm actually not. I am stunned on this lens. I wasn't expecting it to be, you know, so over the top. You know, just screaming, raging, amazing. But it really is. Now you're repeating yourself. Get to the point in the video, and I'm like, okay, I agree with you there on that front. Thanks for watching, and at least test drive this lens. If you do, you'll be forced to buy it. There's just no way you're going to use this lens and not purchase it, honestly. Either that or put it on your wish list. Thanks for watching, and end this video with saying, Fuji! I'm not a Fuji fanboy, says the guy wearing a Fuji shirt that owns every Fujifilm lens. I give honest lens reviews, okay? Because people crucify me if I just give fanboy talk. Okay, I just go, oh, this is great, Fuji made it, it's awesome, you know, because, why is it awesome? Well, because Fuji made it. That doesn't help anybody. That's not an honest review. That's not helpful. Not helpful at all. That's worse than useless. You know, I'm not going to do that. Thanks. Bye.